Okay, folks, welcome back, and this is our second time on this video because I didn't realize my microphone was off. Call me Homer Simpson because I'm gonna say dough. Alright, these things happen occasionally. Technical human error. In this case, the human error being that I didn't turn on the microphone. Alright, so tonight's topic is about how to recover your energy if you've lost some, and also how to build up energetic reserves. So in my previous video, I talked about my near-death experiences, and as you can imagine, if you've had a near-death experience, um, getting that close to the brink of death, you end up, you may come back, but you may not come back fully. You lose something along the way in translation, so to speak. And on top of that, if you're not careful, say like with your magical work in general, and you draw too much on your own life force or chi or what have you, you can mess yourself up that way as well. This is a classic mistake that I see and that I've made as well. But I see a lot of magicians when they start out, they're doing a lot of the magical work and they end up doing something. They end up doing too much because maybe they draw on themselves too much because they haven't learned how to work with the elemental energies, planetary energies, spirits, whatever else, and they haven't learned to draw upon multiple sources of energy. Well, I mean, one of the things that you want to learn, ideally, is how to do that. So it's really important that you're taking the time to figure those kinds of things out. And some of this just comes through experience. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to talk about how to recover our own life energy and how to build up an extra store of it. The thing to keep in mind is that your life energy, your life force, whatever you want to call it, is limited. It's not infinite. I mean, the Taoists have a good way of putting it that it's like you have a bank, and you have an account in there, and you start withdrawing from it. Well, you can only withdraw so much, and then that life force is gone. Now, most people would think, well, once I withdraw it, I can't put anything back in, and that's where I would disagree and say you actually can, but this requires a fundamental understanding of how to cultivate that energy within yourself. Now, there's a couple ways you can go about restoring your energy. You can take the psychic vamp route, where you psychically vamp people. Like Colin Robertson in What We Do in the Shadows, right? Where basically you're going and you're drawing on people's energy, when they're upset or something like that. Certainly can work, and I can attest to that because when I was a teenager, I did some psychic vamping. I don't recommend it though, because if you have, unless somebody really wants you to do it, I mean, if that's a consensual thing, I mean, that's a different thing altogether. But I don't recommend it otherwise because, if people catch on to what you're doing and it's someone who's a skilled practitioner, they can shut you down pretty quick. What I learned to do, and I started learning this in 2004, is I learned how to, I started learning how to do internal work. Now, I've talked about internal work before in terms of, working through traumas and issues and emotional blockages. Well, the thing about emotional blockages is that that's basically energy that is really bound up tight. It's like a blockage, so hold up your hand and put your hand into a fist right now for me. Don't squeeze too tightly, because if you have a heart condition, you could actually cause an issue for yourself, like a heart attack, but just a little bit. Now imagine that this is a blockage in your body. Nothing can really go in and nothing can go out. You can imagine that this is actually causing your energy to be seized up a little bit. Now, if you learn to dissolve it, which is just to gradually release it, that energy gets freed up and suddenly you have more energy than before. So how do we do this? Well, we do this through meditation practices. So let's actually do this right now, since you guys are on here with me. I want you to touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Do it lightly. Don't force your tongue up there. Just a light, gentle touch. And I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and then breathe out through your nose as well. So, take a deep breath in and breathe out. And ideally, as you're breathing in, you are breathing into your diaphragm. Your diaphragm, your belly is expanding. You don't want your lungs to be expanding. You want your diaphragm to be expanding. So let's go ahead and do that again. Now, this simple act of breathing in and of itself can be useful because what ends up happening is you start drawing on, the energy of the environment around you. And when you're doing internal work, as you get more and more developed with it, you learn how to take energy from the environment around you, such as the underworld energy, the stellar cosmos, elemental energies, planetary energies. You learn how to take that in and basically absorb and digest it, for lack of a better word, making it part of yourself. And so, as you can imagine, this is another way to draw or to build that energy back up within yourself if you've actually used up too much of your life energy. So I want you to keep breathing in and breathing out with your tongue, the tip of your tongue touching the roof of your mouth. And what I'm going to have you do is while you're doing that, is just allow your consciousness to flow to the top of your head and just touch on it lightly. And as you breathe in, just allow that consciousness to go down into your head, down into your neck. And just keep it there for a moment, simply being present with yourself and what you're feeling. You feel any aches or pains in your head, any areas of tension or whatever else, just allow that energy, that breath, to just wash around it, like water flowing around an ice cube. It'll gradually melt that ice cube and it'll turn into water, and then as you continue to go deeper, it'll turn into gas, and you'll just continue to dissolve and let it go, relaxing and releasing whatever tensions are there. And as you keep breathing, allow yourself to go further into your shoulders, your torso, your arms, just going lower and lower. Go as low as you can. Don't force it though. Never ever force this stuff, okay? Just allow it to flow into yourself. What you're going to do is that as you're doing this and as you're just gradually pulling apart and releasing those tensions, you're going to find that releases energy in and of itself. A lot of times the reason why we don't have the energy that we want in life is because we've gotten so wrapped up in whatever it is that we're upset about or angry about or whatever else that we're letting it take our energy. Now, I want to be very clear. There's nothing wrong with feeling emotions, anger or fear or sadness or love or anything like that. But we should also recognize that these emotions do take up some energy. And if we want that energy back, and if we don't want to be giving that energy away to somebody else, it can be really good to release these things. Because here's the other thing to keep in mind. Let's say I feel angry about something at someone. In a way, I'm giving away my energy to that person, right? That person has a grip on me. And as long as I'm angry at them, they'll continue to have that grip. Now, if I let go of that anger toward them and relax and release it and work through it and come to a different relationship with it, I get some of that energy back, or maybe all of it back. And this isn't to say either that, like you're taking the, turn the other cheek thing here. That's not what I'm advocating for, because, we always have to have our boundaries and everything else. But rather that what I'm saying is that if you're going to take action with anyone, never do it from the heat of emotion. Do it from a place of relaxation and focus, because then you will accomplish far more and you'll be objective about it. That's just a bit of advice there. So just continue relaxing and releasing. Just drawing the breath in, breathing out, relaxing, releasing, letting go. That feels pretty good. And as you do this more and more and more, and let me be very clear, this is something where, you do want to commit to doing this a little bit more than just like, I'll just do it once in a while. Like I do this every day. as you do this more and more and more, you'll find that you're also able to draw upon, the planetary and elemental energies, the stellar cosmos and the underworld, these other energies. And as you're able to do that and connect with those energies, you'll be able to integrate those into yourself. And as you can imagine, this takes a bit of work. And you might say, well, Taylor, if it takes work, how am I really recovering my energy? But what you have to keep in mind is that this work that you're doing is actually building up off of what you have, and it's building it stronger and stronger, and it's creating a deeper and deeper foundation from which you can do things. So, for example, there would have been one time in my mid-20s or so when I would do a magical working where I would have been pretty exhausted afterwards, and some of that was because of the way I'd messed myself up with the near-death experiences and things like that. Now, I don't have any of those issues. I can do magical workings for multiple hours because I've got this nice energetic reserve that I've built up within myself. Now, I do have another approach I'm going to share here toward building up your energetic reserves, and this comes down to keeping your energy in different, it's kind of like as a battery, if you will, like having backup batteries. So one of the things that I did learn early on and started doing, especially because sometimes I would exhaust myself and I needed to get energy back quick, is I started learning how to siphon off just a little bit of energy from my everyday interactions, emotions, everything. And I would just store it away into an object. And that object would be my battery. And what I could do then is if I had used up my energy, I could just take that energy back. I would have that energetic reserve and I could take it back into myself. I just have to, think about it and it would come back. And so that would allow me to, keep going with whatever I was doing or get myself back into a good place. And you can do that as well. So what you would do in that kind of case is that you're going to pick some type of object, and I don't recommend telling other people what that object exactly is. Be smart about it, right? But what you're going to do is you're going to essentially store a little bit of your energy in that object. You're going to enchant the object to be a battery of sorts. And you can do multiples of these, by the way. I have multiple batteries. And then you can basically just store a little bit of your energy from every single action you take every day. Just set up a little magical working where you're like, okay, for everything I do, X amount is actually taken and put away into this energetic savings account so that when I need it on a rainy day, I got it. And what ends up happening then is, you store a little bit away and you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, this is full. Then you create another battery and you do this. Like I've got a bunch of them at this point. I haven't used them in years, but I still have them around for that rainy day, knock on wood, when I need them. Because it's a good idea. And, you just store a little bit away at a time. And you just keep... You just keep it there and ready to go and ready to draw upon as needed for that rainy day. And that's a way to build up your energetic reserves, because then you actually have these reserves outside of yourself that are raring to go when you need them to. And so this is kind of how it's a combination of doing internal work as far as building my energy back up. But in this case, also creating those energetic reserves is just another way to save yourself some time and effort down the line. And those energetic reserves can be helpful for like healing purposes, like if you need to heal from stuff a little bit quicker, draw on those reserves. Or, you used up your energy for the day, do that. Or you're doing a big magical working, and you can do that. Now, if you're smart, you'll at a certain point learn to draw upon other energetic resources like planetary magic and stuff like that. Like when I do magical workings now, I use a very small amount of my own energy. Everything else is and that small amount of energy is used to direct everything else. Everything else is pretty much the planetary, elemental, all that other stuff. And I just let that little bit of my energy is really in there just to direct and guide where I want things to go. And so I save it. I save my own life energy for myself, and really for the inner alchemical work that I'm doing. Not just the relaxing and letting go of tensions, but also for my bodily health, and just for the overall well-being. And so this is a way for you to also think of things is that, as you get better at working magic, and specifically at working with different types of energy, you learn to use less and less of your own. You only put in the amount you need to put in, and no more than that. No less either. It's a good example. I've talked about the 70% rule before, and so I mean it's a good example of that. Is like only use so much that you need to use. Don't exhaust yourself. And let's be honest here, people are really good at exhausting themselves a lot of the time. It's kind of the culture that we're in. But if you study any kind of strategic textbooks or things like that, one of the things you quickly learn is that the people who exhaust themselves are the people that set themselves up to fall, because it's just not good strategy. So it's the same thing that you want to be thinking about with your magical work. Like, what can I do to draw upon just the right amount of energy from myself to get what I need? And how can I direct other energies, planetary, elemental, things like that? And that's where, some of these things come into play. And it can be very helpful and useful to learn those kinds of skills. And you might say, well, where do you learn that, Taylor? Well, I mean, you can check out some of my classes or my books or whatever, because I certainly talk about some of that stuff here. I've certainly given you a couple of things to work on that you could take and apply even in this video. So, do the breathing work, do the meditation practice, and see where that gets you. All right, folks, that's it for tonight, and thank you so much for Victoria for letting me know about that first blunder. Fortunately, here we are, and we've got it worked out.